I overheard my daughter say something she never meant for me to hear. Turns out, my wife was cheating on me with the father of our daughter's fiancé. She thought I'd never find out, but while she planned the wedding, I was planning my revenge. Now she's ruined. He's being investigated, and I'm gone with everything. You'll want to see how I did it. You never think a quiet afternoon conversation with your daughter could split your whole world in half. But it did. It started with coffee. I was sitting in the sunroom, looking over the guest list for Emma's wedding. My wife, Lynn, was on the phone in the kitchen, laughing. Too hard. The kind of laugh you give when you're pretending you're someone else for a few minutes. I knew that laugh. I'd heard it for decades. Emma walked in, phone in one hand, a wedding binder in the other. "Hey, Dad," she said. "I need your help with seating arrangements. Mom says you can handle the family politics better than she can." That made me chuckle. I guess 35 years of dodging awkward cousins finally paid off. She laughed and flopped down on the couch beside me. We were going over who should sit with whom when she casually said, "Just don't seat Mom near Gerald. It'll make things weird." I paused. "Weird?" She looked up, instantly aware she'd said something she wasn't supposed to. She tried to brush it off. "You know how she is. Always too friendly after a few glasses of wine. Gerald flirts with anything that moves. Just keep them apart." She looked down quickly, pretending to read the chart, but her ears were red, bright red. I just nodded. We didn't talk about it again that day, but something inside me cracked. That night, I lay in bed beside Lynn. She was texting someone. She turned the screen away when I looked. I stared at the ceiling for 2 hours, thinking about what Emma said. "Don't seat Mom near Gerald." She didn't say, "Don't seat Gerald near Mom." No, the problem was Lynn, not Gerald. And Emma knew something. That was the part that gutted me more than anything. Gerald was the father of Emma's fiancé. We'd had backyard barbecues with him. He bought rounds at the local pub. He called me buddy and slapped me on the back like we were old college friends. He'd hugged Lynn when he first met her. Too long. I remembered it now. That hug, that smirk. I didn't confront Lynn. Not yet. I knew what would happen if I did. Denial, tears, gaslighting, maybe even guilt-tripping. I'd seen it all from friends who'd been cheated on. The liar always wins the first round, because the truth sounds absurd when you don't want to believe it. So instead, I smiled. I made jokes. I asked about cake flavors and flower types and honeymoon destinations. And while everyone was planning a wedding, I was planning a war. First step, information. I waited for Lynn to leave for her yoga class. 30 minutes later, I opened her laptop. It wasn't even password protected, just like always. Her email was clean, almost too clean, but I checked the recently deleted folder. Nothing. Then I remembered. She'd been using WhatsApp a lot lately. I opened the web version. It needed a QR code scan, but I'd seen her use it on her phone before. I had to be careful, so I waited for the right moment, when she was in the shower the next morning, and I synced her phone to my computer using WhatsApp web. The screen loaded, and there he was, Gerald. No nickname, no emojis, just Gerald. But the messages. Still thinking about last Thursday. You looked amazing in that red sweater. Can't stop replaying the way you looked at me at the bakery. Was your husband suspicious? And then hers. He's always clueless. It's almost sad. Emma would kill us if she knew. I can't wait till the wedding's over so we can really talk. I stared at the screen. 15 messages, dozens of little betrayals. I copied everything, screenshots, logs. I backed up the chat and sent it to a hidden email account I'd just made. Then I logged out, erased all traces. That night, I brought Lynn her favorite tea and kissed her on the forehead. She smiled. She had no idea. I started watching them more closely. At family gatherings, they barely spoke. That was the trick. Too careful. No glances. No joking. No eye contact. That level of discipline only comes from guilt. Gerald still called me buddy, still asked about my golf game. But I saw it now. The way his smile twitched when he mentioned Emma's wedding, the way Lynn avoided saying his name out loud. They were scared, and that was good. Let them get comfortable, because I was just getting started. There's something about betrayal that sharpens a man. I'd spent my whole life being dependable, showing up, doing the right thing, loving my wife, raising 2 daughters, fixing broken steps, teaching them how to ride bikes and change tires, all the while thinking that loyalty earned you peace. Turns out, all it earned me was silence behind my back and kisses that weren't meant for me. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to cry. I was going to build something, a plan. The beauty of a wedding is that everyone is distracted. The planning consumes every waking hour. The vendors, the flowers, the meals, the dresses. It's chaos disguised as celebration. And while Lynn and Emma lost themselves in Pinterest boards and bridal tastings, I started quietly taking steps of my own. I created a private drive on a USB stick, labeled it Old Taxes in case anyone found it. But inside, it held every piece of evidence I could gather. Messages, photos, dates, locations. A complete dossier of betrayal. I even added commentary, notes, my own thoughts. It was therapy and preparation all in one. But that wasn't enough. They needed to feel something. They needed to lose more than just my trust. So I turned my attention to Gerald. Gerald owned a small contracting business, plumber, electrician, handyman services, mostly clean work, but I'd heard whispers over the years. Guys paid under the table, permits skipped, unlicensed side jobs. I started digging. Public records, business filings, county citations. I found a lawsuit from 2 years ago, settled quietly, but it involved a collapsed deck and an unfiled inspection report. Bingo! I printed everything and mailed it anonymously to the local building department and the state tax board. No return address, just a note. You should really look into Gerald H.'s licensing practices. Start with the deck collapse. You'll find a pattern. Within 2 weeks, he was contacted by the state licensing board. A routine audit, they called it. I smiled when I overheard Lynn say, Gerald's been so stressed lately. Some kind of random check on his business. Oh, sweetheart, you have no idea. Now it was her turn. Lynn had worked at the same local credit union for over a decade. She was good at her job, liked by most, but like most financial institutions, they had strict internal conduct policies, especially when it came to clients, privacy, and relationships. I reached out to an old friend who still worked in corporate compliance. I told her a hypothetical story. Let's say someone in your office was seen having an ongoing inappropriate relationship with a client who's known to have loans or accounts at your branch. Would that be a violation? She didn't hesitate. Absolutely. That could trigger an ethics review or even a formal investigation, especially if the person in question didn't disclose it. Perfect. I submitted a confidential tip through the bank's internal hotline, naming no names but leaving just enough detail, location, time frames, even reference to possible favoritism or improper communication. Again, no fingerprints, no emails, just shadows. Then I waited. The wedding day crept closer. The house filled with decorations, guest lists, custom signs that said, Emma and Daniel forever. I helped hang them. I poured wine for visiting relatives. I gave Emma away in a beautiful white dress. All while knowing her husband's father had been sleeping with her mother. All while knowing her mother was about to lose everything she thought she controlled. And still, they had no clue. I watched Lynn rehearse her toast to Emma, smiling through glassy eyes. I watched Gerald try not to look at her during family photos. Cowards, both of them. And I I smiled at everyone, clapped the loudest, paid for the catering with a check I hoped they would choke on. Because after the wedding, that's when the real fun would begin. The wedding. The wedding day arrived with the kind of perfection you only see in commercials. The sky was clear, not too hot, not too breezy, just the right kind of soft golden sunlight that photographers dream about. Everyone was buzzing with excitement. Makeup artists, photographers, caterers, relatives from out of town. And me? I was calm. Not because I was happy, but because I knew this was the beginning of their end. The ceremony itself was beautiful. Emma looked radiant, glowing with that naive joy of a woman who hadn't yet learned how betrayal can wear a familiar face. Daniel stood tall, proud, completely unaware that the man standing next to him, his father, had been sharing a bed with his new mother-in-law. Gerald looked nervous. He smiled too wide, laughed too loud. Lynn, on the other hand, was playing the part perfectly. Elegant, composed, tears at just the right moments. She even reached over to squeeze my hand during the vows. I squeezed back, hard. The reception followed. Everyone moved to the tent for dinner and dancing. Toasts were scheduled after the meal. I was listed last. The father of the bride, the DJ said. "Paul, would you like to say a few words?" There was applause. I stood, glass in hand. I looked around. At Emma and Daniel, wide-eyed and hopeful. At Lynn, smiling like she still controlled the narrative. At Gerald, shifting in his seat, suddenly tense. And then I began. "I've waited a long time to give this speech," I said. "A long time." A few laughs from the crowd. "But not for the reason you think." I paused. Let that silence stretch just long enough. I thought I'd be giving this speech as a father full of pride, a man who had built a family on trust, commitment, and love. I thought this day would be a celebration of everything we stood for. More silence. But sometimes, love wears a mask, and sometimes, the truth doesn't come in the form of a toast, but a reckoning. Now everyone was quiet. I turned slightly. "Emma," I said, "I'm proud of you, and I hope your marriage brings you more honesty than some of us have practiced." I didn't look at Lynn. I didn't need to. I could feel the blood drain from her face. I raised my glass. "To truth, no matter how late it arrives, may it always come before the damage is permanent." And I sat down. The applause was hesitant, nervous laughter. Some whispered, some glanced at each other. But no one knew what I'd really just said, except the people who were supposed to. Later that night, I left early. No goodbyes, no drama. I walked out quietly, leaving the music and the fairy lights behind. The next morning, it began. Gerald's office received a formal inquiry from the state. He was being investigated for permit violations, labor issues, and improper contracting activity. His accounts were frozen pending review. His business partner dropped him within 48 hours. He called Lynn in a panic. I know because she came storming into the kitchen shouting, "What the hell is happening?" I just looked at her, calmly, and said, "Consequences." 2 days later, Lynn was called into HR. An anonymous ethics complaint had triggered an internal review. She was asked to surrender her company devices and place herself on leave pending investigation. She came home sobbing. And I made her tea. Family fallout. The fallout came faster than I expected, like dominoes set just close enough together. After her suspension, Lynn tried to hold it together for exactly 2 days. Then she broke. Not in a loud, dramatic way. No. She broke quietly. Like a woman who realized the scaffolding of her perfect life had collapsed, and she was still holding the wreckage, pretending it was whole. She confronted me in the kitchen, the same place where she used to hum while making morning coffee. "Did you do this?" she asked. Her voice was low, shaky. I turned from the sink, drying a plate. "Do what?" I replied calmly. "Don't play games, Paul. Gerald's under investigation. I've been suspended. Emma won't answer my calls. And you—" I raised a hand. "Stop. Just stop." She froze. "I didn't cheat, Lynn. I didn't lie. I didn't sneak around with someone else's spouse. So if your life is falling apart, maybe that's just the universe evening the score." She didn't deny it this time. No fake tears, no righteous indignation. She just slumped. And then the final crack in her facade. "She told me you knew," she whispered. I looked at her. Who? Emma. That hit harder than I expected. Emma knew. My daughter, the one I'd raised, protected, loved more than my own life, had known. And she'd said nothing. No, worse. She'd covered for it, chosen her mother over the truth. Later that evening, I received a text from Emma. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought it would ruin everything before the wedding. Mom said you'd never find out." I didn't respond. Not then, not ever. 2 days later, Sarah, my younger daughter, came by. She brought groceries, checked in on me. We sat in silence for a bit before she finally asked, "Is it true?" I didn't lie. I showed her the messages, the screenshots, the toast transcript, everything. She sat quietly, then nodded. "I figured." "You did?" "I didn't know it was Gerald," she said, "but I knew something was off. The way Emma defended Mom every time, the way you looked at her lately." She paused. "I'm staying with you, just so you know." I nodded, trying not to break. That was the first time I'd felt like I still had a piece of my family. Lynn, to her credit, tried. She cooked dinner, cleaned, asked me to talk. I said nothing. She cried. I stayed silent. When she reached out to touch my hand, I pulled away like it burned. Because it did. 3 weeks after the wedding, I filed for divorce. No announcement, no fight, just a clean, quiet filing. I had already prepared the paperwork. Years of careful account management had left almost everything in my name. Joint assets had been shifted when we refinanced the house 2 years ago. My name only. The accounts? Transferred. The savings? Moved to a secure Canadian account. Legal? Ironclad. She would get nothing but the furniture and whatever jewelry she didn't pawn in the next year. Emma sent one final message. "I can't believe you're doing this to Mom." I finally responded. "She did it to herself. You just helped her hide the knife." Blocked. Lynn didn't even contest the divorce. Maybe she knew it was pointless. Maybe she finally saw the kind of man she'd underestimated for so long. 1 month later, I sold the house. Sarah and I packed up the last few boxes. She stood in her old bedroom one last time, then smiled. "You ready for Canada?" I nodded. I've been ready since the day she kissed him. The departure leaving wasn't hard. The house we'd lived in for 25 years, just wood and paint now. The neighborhood, a backdrop for a life that didn't exist anymore. What once held memories now just held echoes. Sarah and I loaded the last suitcase into the trunk. She looked back at the house, chewing her bottom lip like she always did when she was nervous. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I just thought we'd always come back here." I looked at her, my daughter, who stood by me, not because I asked, but because she saw. "Home isn't always a place," I said. "Sometimes it's just who's left standing with you." She smiled through a tear and got in the car. We crossed the border into Canada 2 days later. A small town near British Columbia, quiet, green, full of lakes and forests. Slower pace, slower people, no history. Perfect. I bought a cottage with the money from the house. I opened a small consulting firm from home, mostly to stay busy. Sarah enrolled in a remote grad program. We built a routine, mornings on the porch with coffee, evenings watching the sun dip behind pine trees. And silence, the kind of silence that doesn't scream, the kind that heals. Once, about a month in, Sarah asked me, "Do you think Emma regrets it?" I sipped my coffee. "I think Emma made her choice." "But she was trying to protect you, right?" I turned to her. "Protecting someone doesn't mean lying to them. That's not protection, that's fear. And fear has no place in family." She nodded, quiet. We didn't talk about it again. Lynn tried to reach out once, a short letter. I lost everything, but mostly, I lost you. I thought you'd never find out. I was weak, and I was afraid. I hope you find peace. I hope Sarah forgives me someday. I still love you, even if you hate me. I burned the letter in the fireplace. There was nothing left to say. I never remarried, didn't want to. It's not that I don't believe in love anymore. I do. But some scars are sacred. They remind you of who you became when everything else fell apart. Sarah found someone eventually. A good man, decent, steady. A lot like me, I guess. She told him everything. He didn't run. That's how I knew he was worthy of her. Sometimes when I sit on that porch, I think about how close I came to living the rest of my life beside a lie, how close I came to dying as a man who never stood up for himself. But now I breathe easy, because justice doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it comes quietly, with a suitcase, with a daughter's hand in yours, and a world you built, not from what was left, but from what was right.